Hello and welcome back to Slide Into Sports, live on 103.1 FM on WVLP Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Schleier, and here we talk about sports stories that have a trickle-down effect, rules and regulations that also have trickle-down effect, primarily focused on college sports, but every once in a while we venture off into the pro sports world. And this week, we're coming to the end of the March Madness. It's the last broadcast that's going to be happening in March. Final Four and championship game is going to be April 4th and April 6th. So we're at the end of the college basketball season. We've also approached the end of the college swim season for Division I for men and women. We're going to talk a little bit about that because there is a interesting story regarding A final and B final that's going on. And there's, of course, very notable performances at these meets, and the reaction of the decision of A and B finals has also been very notable as well. And we're also going to talk about the tournament challenge, just shouting out who is currently at the top and who I think probably has the best chance to win based off of how many points left that the person can score. So, all right, let's get into this. So we're going to break down a little bit what happened with the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 games, because those games just concluded. Purdue, they got past Texas 79-77, and I've said this before that the officiating was terrible, but oh my goodness, the officiating in this game was terrible for both sides. And I mean, at least with the officiating, it's been consistently terrible for everybody, not just one team over another, but it's just been consistently bad. Drives me a little bit crazy, but yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily like it when officials get so involved in these games, especially, this is the road to the national championship. It should be more determined by what's going on the court, not necessarily the calls that are being made on the court. And yeah, it just, the officiating has not been great, wasn't great in the Sweet 16, wasn't great in the Elite 8. Some teams were able to overcome, some teams obviously not able to overcome. In this case, Texas just wasn't able to get it done. They were kind of hanging around with Purdue, I think longer than people were expecting them to, but at the end of the day, Purdue was able to get it done. They got a last-second shot off, left Texas with like 1.5 seconds left to score 3 points to win the game or 2 points to put it in overtime. That didn't happen. We also had Iowa make an insane run to the Elite 8. We talked about how they beat Florida last week, but they also got past number 4, Nebraska, 77-71, and becoming the first 9 seed to make the Elite 8 since, I believe, 2023. So that was huge for Iowa. And Illinois, they upset Houston by 10 points. They beat them 65-55. Now, this kind of confirms a lot about what a lot of people feared with Houston. They had it on offense, but defensively, they were kind of missing some things, or at least it felt like something was missing on defense with this team. But Illinois, they used their size, they controlled the pace of the game, and they were able to get it done. They moved on to the Elite 8, or they moved on to the Elite 8, I should say. And then Arizona, Arkansas. Arizona just whooped Arkansas. I mean, I don't really know how else to put it. I mean, it was 109-88 total in complete domination of this Arkansas team. I was a little nervous for Arizona just because going into that game, they played a weirdly close game against Utah State the week before. So I was thinking, okay, maybe Arkansas could sneak up on them because they played a really great game against High Point. And Arizona, they bounced back really well. Their size showed, they out-rebounded Arkansas. So that obviously helps. That was something that I said was going to be a huge factor in this game. They out-rebounded them 30-26, and it was primarily the defensive rebounds that Arizona dominated in. They had 24 defensive rebounds over Arkansas's 19. Arkansas did force Arizona to turn the ball over, but Arizona capitalized more off the turnovers that Arkansas made. So ultimately, those couple of things that gave Arizona the edge over Arkansas. And some other games for the Sweet 16. So I guess day 2 of the Sweet 16, we had Duke versus St. John's. That one was an insanely close game. St. John's just hitting from the outside, but end of the day, they just weren't able to get it done, and they fell to Duke 75-80. Dan Hurley's dream of playing St. John's a third time this year in the Elite Eight died that day. So that was sad for Dan Hurley, I guess. Alabama lost to Michigan 90-77. Not too much of a surprise with this game. I will say, though, Alabama was giving Michigan a difficult time in that first half. The pace that Alabama plays is not something that this Michigan team is typically used to, and it really showed in that first half. But Michigan, they were able to make the right adjustments, and they got the job done, obviously. And yeah, I mean, great game by Alabama, but when Alabama doesn't play on their specific style of play, if they're not in control of the style that is, on the court that both teams are kind of playing, it doesn't bode well for Alabama. It's kind of their way or the highway, and that's just not the way you're going to find success in March. But a surprise run to the Sweet 16, and, there was hope that maybe they could get past Michigan in that first half. So, great job for Alabama, I guess. Michigan moved on. Then we had UConn, Michigan State. UConn went up a lot really early. Michigan State almost came back, kind of like what happened in the UCLA game. Michigan State, they were down a lot. They had to crawl all the way back, and they just weren't able to get it done. This was the exact same situation here. UConn moved on by winning 67-63. Then Tennessee, in a surprising game, upset Iowa State 76-62. Iowa State, they weren't on their rhythm. They were not on rhythm. They weren't doing the things that they normally do. And I think Tennessee, they just outcoached Iowa State as well. I mean, I think the experience in coaching that Tennessee has was a huge advantage in this game. Rick Barnes has been to the Sweet 16 numerous times, and that experience at that level really showed. Iowa State, I mean, they have a great team. They have a great coach, but they haven't really made it into the Sweet 16 since he became the coach. So this is really his first Sweet 16 as the Iowa State head coach. And again, it kind of showed. I mean, because we talked about it before on a previous episode, but the preparation going from week 1 to week 2, it's very different. The way you look at these teams is very different as well, because what they did in the regular season and what they did in their conference tournaments doesn't tend to matter as much. It matters more what they're doing right now, or at least, in that first weekend of the March Madness tournament. You can anticipate which adjustments they could make, how they're looking, what pace, they're thriving on, all that stuff. So, yeah, Iowa State, they just didn't really adjust all that well. Tennessee, they were able to capitalize. Then we move on to the Elite Eight, which took place on Saturday. The first games were Iowa, Illinois, and Purdue, Arizona. Iowa, Illinois was close for a very long time, up until the very end. Illinois was able to ice Iowa out on the outside. They weren't able to get much done on the inside, and Illinois, again, able to just finish the job. It looked like Iowa just shut down within the last 5 minutes of the game. Not good, but still an incredible run by the Hawkeyes, absolutely. So Illinois makes it to the Final Four for the first time in 23 years, I believe. I think they were in the Final Four in 2003, if I'm not mistaken. Then Arizona, they beat Purdue. Purdue was up at half. Braden Smith was hitting really well from the outside, but Arizona, they made some really great adjustments, and they were able to contain Purdue on the outside. They were out physicaling Purdue, which really mattered because typically when you're being more physical, when you're driving to the basket, you're able to get those calls. Now, I will say, I'm not necessarily... Okay, so Purdue, obviously, I have biased feelings against Purdue because I went to IU. And I will say there was a lot of things in this game that they were getting away with. Traveling, Trey Kaufman-Renn is constantly leading with his elbow, never really got called, and then when it did get called, it was outrageous. So the officiating, and this just goes back to the officiating, the issue that I've had with it all tournament, it just has not been consistent. It's like sometimes they call things, sometimes they don't. Maybe it's because the officials see it sometimes and sometimes they don't, but it sometimes even varies from game to game. It's just inconsistent calling from the officials. I don't like it. I don't like it because then the players have to readjust to those calls when really they shouldn't have to, but I guess it's part of the game. But yeah, there's just a lot of calls that were going on in that game that one way or another should or should not have happened, but Arizona ended up winning 79-64. They showed that they were the better team. And I think even just going into this tournament, we all knew that the ceiling for this Purdue team was the Elite Eight. I mean, especially matching up against Arizona. Now, if Purdue was in the Midwest region, if they were playing Michigan in the Final Four, maybe it would have fared differently. I think Purdue matches up better against Michigan. Obviously, it showed because they beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. I think also maybe even in the South, if Purdue was in the South region, they could have matched up with Illinois. I think that's a team that they would match up a little bit better against because of the pace of play that Illinois plays at. Even Duke, I think Purdue matches or would have matched up better against Duke than they did against Arizona. So I think in this game, it was more of an unfortunate set of circumstances for Purdue because this Purdue team is good. I'm not going to deny that. They are a good team. They made it to the Elite Eight. It takes a lot to make it to the Elite Eight. But again, like I said before, the matchup, styles of play, it just didn't match up well in Purdue's favor, in my opinion. And Arizona was just able to enforce their will upon Purdue in the second half and then just end up running away with it. Then on the second day of the Elite Eight, we had Tennessee versus Michigan. Michigan was dominant the entire game. I don't really need to talk too much about this game. Michigan won 95-62. So with that game concluding, there is no SEC teams in the Final Four. And I don't know when the last time that happened was. I imagine that's probably a pretty common thing just because, there's only 4 teams and there's so many conferences. But anyways, Michigan completely dominated Tennessee. And yeah, the ceiling for Tennessee just feels like the Elite Eight all the time. I don't think I've ever seen Rick Barnes or Tennessee get past the Elite Eight ever. So yeah, the ceiling, Tennessee, they reached it, they touched the ceiling, but they're just not breaking through, and I'm not entirely sure what Tennessee has to do to break that ceiling, like organization-wise or school-wise. Like it seems very frustrating for Tennessee because they have a decent team every single year, but they have not been able to get over that hump that is the Elite Eight. So yeah, good run for Tennessee. I don't think a lot of people had Tennessee going this far in the tournament. I know I most certainly did not, but yeah, they made it to the Elite Eight despite a lot of our better judgments. So yeah, Michigan, they get the win, kind of as expected. A lot of people had Michigan in the Final Four and even as national champions. There's a lot of people in the bracket pool that have Michigan as a national champion. So yeah. And the final Elite Eight game. Now this one was probably the craziest one out of all of the Elite Eight games, but UConn versus Duke. It came down to the final shot, and I assume you might have watched the game the first half, and you were like, UConn's down 20 points, 19 points. It's over. You might have turned your TV off, gone outside, because it was a pretty nice day on Sunday. probably like, you know what, let's go outside. Let's, I don't know, take the dog for a walk or go on a run or something. But yeah, just not a great half for UConn. But then UConn in the second half fights their way back. And honestly, it's still hard to even process what happened because it was absolutely insane. But Braylon Mullins, freshman guard from UConn, the freshman that not a lot of people have been talking about because there have been so many elite freshmen in this class. Braylon Mullins nails a 3-point shot at the end of the game from 35 feet out, right by the logo. It was the only 3-point shot that he made the entire game. Like on his stat line, he was 1 for 5 for 3-pointers on the day. That brought him to 10 points total. He was 4 for 10 in the field, and he took the shot. The Indiana native just said, you know what? We're going to pull up from the logo because he had a good look. He had a really good look, and he took the shot. They forced a turnover. So just to kind of break this down a little bit, UConn was down 2 points after they went 1-1 on the free throw. Duke had to inbound the ball. They had to get it past half court, and they pass it around a little bit. Caden Boozer ends up getting the ball. He tries to pass it over to UConn guys. Mullins ends up with the ball. He passes it to one of his teammates to take the coverage off of him, gets the ball back, has a wide open shot from 35 feet out, and he nails it and leaves only 0.3 seconds left on the clock, which ended up sealing the game. I mean, it was absolutely insane. And I mean, looking at the UConn stat line for 3-pointers, they shot 21.7% from 3-point. They were 1 for 18 in the first half of the game. 1 for 18. Just absolutely clutch performance or clutch shot by Mullins. And Duke just completely devastated. I mean, just another choke job after last year. I mean, last year, if I recall last year correctly, they were beating Houston by about 15 points with 10 to 15 points with 5 minutes to go. And Houston ended up winning that game last year in the Final Four to go to the national championship game. This was just like that. I mean, Duke had, I think it was a 97.8% chance of winning by halftime. Even after halftime, it was like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Duke had a really high percent chance of winning, and they couldn't get it done. They could not get it done. Just an absolutely gritty performance by this UConn team to come back and make it to the Final Four. I mean, it's just wow. I mean, mind blown. I remember watching that, even just looking at the stands, watching that everybody there was in complete shock. You could see all the UConn fans jumping up and throwing their hands in the air, and then all the Duke fans just like with their hands on their head, their eyes wide open, their mouths, jaws to the floor. I mean, it was just absolutely insane. And even the Duke staff, they showed the Duke staff, and they all just turned and walked away back to the bench after that shot went in. It just, wow. I mean, it took me forever to even really process what happened in that moment just because of how crazy it was. I mean, we've seen buzzer beaters throughout this entire tournament, but I don't think we've ever seen one like that one. I really don't. It was absolutely insane. Just absolutely insane. So now with that being said, we have our Final Four set. We've got Illinois versus UConn, April 4th at 5 Central Time. And then we've got Michigan, Arizona at 7:50 Central Time, April 4th. Games are going to be in Indy. Just, wow. I mean, just looking at this Final Four, immediately what stands out to me is that there is a chance where the Big Ten can have two teams competing for the national championship, those two teams being Illinois and Michigan. But if Illinois wins and Michigan wins, it's a battle between two Big Ten teams, guaranteeing that a Big Ten team will win the national title for the first time since Tom Izzo back in, I think it was 2003, 2004 maybe, but it was a long time ago. It's been a long time since the Big Ten has brought home a college basketball title. And I mean, Big Ten, they've got a great shot at doing so now. They've got two teams. They've got two teams in the Final Four out of four teams. Two teams. Michigan, I think they've got a tough matchup against Arizona. That one is absolutely going to be fun. And that UConn-Illinois game is also going to be just so much fun to watch. I think these teams, I don't think we could have gotten a better Final Four, honestly. Just the way that the whole tournament's played out. I mean, I will say a lot of the tournament has been chalk for the most part. But the parts that weren't, I mean, you look at UConn making it through. I mean, that's not chalk. Illinois, a 3 seed, making it into the Final Four. That's most certainly not chalk. But yeah, I mean, it's just wow. Just absolutely amazing. We were able to get some upsets. We got some teams make history for themselves. Iowa, St. John's, right? You've got Michigan with a second-year head coach in Dusty May on his way, one game away from a national championship game against either Illinois or UConn. Illinois, they're 2 games away from winning their first ever college basketball national title. Dan Hurley, 2 games away, taking his UConn Huskies to their 3rd national title in the 2020s, in this decade. Really in 5 years, because I mean, they won in 22, I think I have that wrong. They won in 23, they won in 24, they missed out in 25, they were the 9 seed and they lost to Florida, the national champions of last year, and now they've made their way back into the Final Four with the opportunity to get their 3rd title in 4 years. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Arizona on their way to get their first national title since the 90s. I mean, it's amazing to see. I mean, all of these teams have a huge opportunity to make history in their schools, in their conferences. Just, it does not get much better than this. It really doesn't. So, yeah, I mean, I've just a lot of energy there with this March Madness tournament. But I do have one question for the people that maybe are still hating on the tournament this year. How you guys feeling? Because it doesn't really seem like a lot of people are hating the tournament now, are they? Especially after that UConn Duke game, because my God, that was absolutely insane. All right, so before we move on, we do have a message from our sponsor, but in the next part of the show, we're going to be talking about the men's and women's swimming results, the national championship results. We're also going to be talking about the B final and why people don't like the B final being eliminated from the championship meet, and really what the B final adds to the national title meet for swimming. And we're also going to make predictions for the Final Four and national title. So, yeah, with that being said, here's a message from our sponsor. This broadcast is brought to you by Authentic Impact, a Northwest Indiana executive coaching practice working with family businesses to ensure their legacy. When you started your business, this broadcast is brought to you by Authentic Impact, a Northwest Indiana executive coaching practice working with family businesses to ensure their legacy. When you started your business, you made a promise to do things differently, better than anyone else. Over time, as the business grows, that promise can get diluted or even lost. Penny Schleier at Authentic Impact helps family business owners reignite that promise, weaving it into team engagement, performance, and hiring so your passion becomes the heartbeat of your company again. Learn more at authentic-impact-coaching.com. All right, so let's talk about the women's first since that happened first. So Virginia wins their 6th-team title in a row. They're on a 6-year run, and they just absolutely dominated the meet. I mean, they were first place by 208.5 points. Second place was Stanford with, again, they were like 200 points behind. But Virginia scored 589 points. Stanford scored 380.5 points. Texas scored 376.5 points. Cal with 303 points. And Tennessee rounding out the top 5 with 301.5 points. Now, one of the things that was notable in this meet, I will say, is Virginia getting a relay sweep. Now, that's something that doesn't typically happen in a meet like this. So just for some added context, a relay sweep, that's just where Virginia won all 5 of the relays. So there is the 200, 400, and 800 freestyle relays and the 200 and 400 medley relays. And they also set a new NCAA and U.S. Open record in the 400 free relay with a 305.26 finishing time. Relays in meets, especially championship meets in swimming, score a crap ton of points. It's double points for individual events or in comparison to individual events. So huge accomplishment there by Virginia. I mean, no wonder they won by 200 points. But yeah, then you also have Stanford's Tori Husk, who led all individual scores with 60 points and captured national titles in the 50 free with a 20.66, 100 fly with a 48.49, and 100 free with 45.17. Some other notable performers were Claire Curzon, Lucy Bell, and there's also some diving records that happened as well. Stanford's freshman Ellie Cole set a new championship meet record in platform diving with a 399.8, and Shara Pelicani from Miami defended her national title in the 1 meter dive. So she's now a 2-time national title holder in the 1 meter springboard diving. Another just a historic milestone was Pitt recording its highest ever team finish in program history, and they tied for 16th with 55 points. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but that's not as many points as like Tori Husk scored just as an individual, but it can be hard for to score in swim meets when you have elite swimmers that can swim 4 events really well at the top, which gathers up a lot of points. I mean, you look at Virginia and Stanford, they both have insanely deep rosters. They're known for their successful women's swimming and diving programs. So they tend to take a lot of the points in. Then you've got Texas, who's kind of an up-and-comer a little bit. Bob Bowman is currently building the female program up at Texas more. But then you've got Cal, they're consistently pretty good, but they didn't really perform as well as I think they would have liked because they put a lot into the ACC championship meets. So they just weren't, it seemed like they were a little pooped out, I guess, for the NCAA championship meets, which, that happens sometimes. And then you've got Tennessee down at 5th, also relatively consistent women's program. So the consistent programs tend to do the best because They have the proven coaches, have more resources that are devoted to those programs. So that's why you tend to see those programs a little more successful than programs like Pitt, where, again, 55 points, not a lot of points, but it's the most amount of points that that Pitt has put up in their school history. So, yeah, that's a pretty big thing to note, because we've talked about NIL, and NIL, it spreads out the money just a little bit more. So you're going to be able to start to see more teams being able to commit more resources to other programs in various ways. All right, moving on to the men's national title, or national championship meet. So Texas, they won for the second year in a row. They scored a total of 445.5 points. Florida came in second with 416 points. Indiana in third with 351 points. Arizona State in fourth with 328 points. And then Tennessee rounding out the top five with 272 points. Now, this meet was absolutely insane. I watched some of it. It was nuts. There was records that were broken. You look at Hubert Kos from Texas. He won the 200 backstroke, got the NCAA record time, which is now a 1:34.13. Now, he also won the 100 back as well. Josh Leando became the third fastest 100 freestyler in history at that meet, 39.91. Max Williamson won the 200 IM and the 200 freestyle, and he is a freshman, and he was the first one to do that since Leon Marchand, I believe it was 3 years ago. So that was huge as well. Ila Karoun from Arizona State, he won the 2 fly. I believe he won it last year as well. And yeah, Arizona State, they won the 400 free relay with a time of 2:42.38, which was a very dominating, that was one of the more dominating swims in that meet. But yeah, Texas, they win again. Bob Bowman now claims his third college swimming and diving title. And now you're probably thinking, well, Texas only has 2, Bob Bowman has 3. So Bob Bowman coached at Arizona State before he went over to Texas, and he won a national title when he coached at Arizona State before taking the job at Texas. So Bob Bowman now has 3 men's national championship titles. A 4th incoming? Maybe. I don't know. But they've really got that program over there rocking and rolling. That's all I really have to say about that. They've got something built very strong over there. Okay, so moving on now to the B final. So essentially what happened with this was the NCAA eliminated B finals. So B finals, for those of you that are not swimmers or divers, is 9 through 16. So the places 9 through 16, they race in a B final. So maybe you come into the B final in 9th, but someone that was placed 11th place could maybe move up into 9th place. So it adds an element of parity to the point scoring instead of just focusing on the A final. So essentially what the NCAA tried to do was try to make it, they tried to modernize the format and create a more broadcast-friendly primetime TV product that was focused mostly on the high-stakes A final matchups. But everybody in the sport knows that B final also has an element of parity to it, and it matters. It does matter. You look at the scores, for the men, it was a lot closer at the top than for the women. Florida was behind by about 30 points. Yeah, 30 points. So if they had swimmers in the B final. Maybe they had a swimmer that barely made B final. They got 16th, but that swimmer could have gotten 9th in that B final and secured more points. And better yet, maybe even taken away points from Texas. So that's why there was that's one of the reasons why there was such up in arms for B finals to be removed. And then you look at even just the reaction in the stands. I mean, I saw some videos going viral online of the audience chanting at the women's NCAA championships to bring back B, basically saying they want the B final back. And there was also a lot of uproar from the swimmers and the coaches as well. I mean, they were talking about how when you have the B final, there's more people that come into the meet. There's more people that want to come into the meet, at least family-wise. More of the team is there. So it makes the atmosphere better. And also, again, the parity, like for coaches, they care a lot about getting those points. And B final, it gives more opportunities for their swimmers to move up in ranking, to move up. And by doing that, they get more points. So that's why there is such an uproar with B final being cut from swimming. And I'm a little worried that now that's going to lead to B finals being cut in other sports. I will say, based on the uproar, I'm hoping that the NCAA changes their decision and goes back to allowing B finals to be a part of the meet. I think that would be a smart move by the NCAA to at least, satisfy the viewers that know and understand the sport, and not just making it not just trying to put the sport in a smaller broadcasting package. I don't think that does the sport of swimming or the sport of diving justice at all. I mean, there's other ways to change it up a little bit. Maybe you make prelims a little bit earlier, make finals a little bit earlier, give your broadcast team, or you allow for more time for the broadcast to occur, something along those lines. I mean, there's other ways to improve the overall broadcast quality for the swimming and diving national championships. Now, something else I will say regarding the national championships as well, it's kind of hard to access. I'm not going to lie, kind of hard to access. ESPN was the one that was essentially, they were the ones that had the access, or they had the broadcasting rights for the national championships for both of the meets. And I talked with other people about it, and they were having a difficult time accessing it as well. It's like they wonder why there's not a lot of people that are, why there's not more people that can watch it. It's because they make it nearly impossible. There's so many paywalls that you have to go through to watch the meets, which is ridiculous. And again, does not do the sports any justice whatsoever. So they need to get that fixed before they, start modernizing it and packaging it up. But yeah, it just makes me mad. It annoys me. It annoys me so much, because it's like they don't need to do that. They really don't. All right, so before I make my Final Four predictions, going to shout out the person who's currently at the top, Ben Sahovey. He has 980 points in the bracket group. Foster Swanson wins, is not far behind him. He's in second place, 970 points, but his max is 150 points higher than Ben Sahovey's max amount of points that they can score. So, depending on how things play out in this Final Four, could determine which out of these two would be the winner. There's also Spam Bentley, who's in third with 950 points, not too far behind, can score 1,590 points. And Wag422, also, they're in fourth. They can score 1,580 points, potentially. But things need to go each of these four people's way. Now, moving on into the Final Four, we already talked about the teams that are in, but my predictions for the Final Four is this. So I like UConn in this matchup against Illinois. So, I'm going to be talking about Illinois versus UConn first. I like UConn in this matchup against Illinois, and I think the way UConn has been playing has been very gritty, and they just don't want to give up. They want to win. They know how to win. Illinois is kind of in that same boat, though. I will say, I think Illinois, they have the size advantage over UConn. They do play a different style of basketball than Duke plays, and I think that could maybe trip up UConn here. And I do think UConn will probably end up winning, but against my better judgment, I'm liking Illinois here. I've been underestimating Illinois really the entire tournament, and now they've made it to the Final Four. So, yeah, it's just hard for me to go against them. Now, UConn's also a team that I've also been underestimating as well. I had them losing to UCLA in that second round. So, both Illinois and UConn, two teams that I completely underestimated going into this tournament, and now they're in the Final Four. So this is a very difficult pick for me to do. But yeah, I think Illinois will end up winning this game against UConn. I think there's something about this. There's something about both these teams. It's so hard for me to pick between these two teams because both of them have looked so good throughout the entire tournament. They've both had to play incredibly tough games, and they found ways to come out on top. So I can't just... Why do I have to pick between these two teams? Why? But yeah, I'm going to pick Illinois to move on into the Final Four. Into the championship game, not the Final Four. Yeah, but I would not be surprised at all if UConn somehow ended up winning this thing. Just in their nature, they've found ways to win. So I don't think Illinois is one to blow 19-point leads like Duke, though. So if UConn does end up falling behind by 19 or 20 points, then I think Illinois will probably end up coming out on top. I don't think Illinois is going to choke that away. So, yeah, it depends on the circumstances, but I'm gonna pick Illinois. I'm gonna pick Illinois, and I've been deliberating on these two teams for really the past couple days, ever since their games concluded. Just trying to figure out who I like and who I don't like in this matchup, because I think it is going to be a very interesting matchup, to say the least. All right, then we've got Arizona, Michigan. These are two teams that I've really liked throughout this year. They've both been insanely consistent in their play. And man, I like what Dusty May's been doing over at Michigan a lot. The fact that it's his second year and he's taking this team to the Final Four is just absolutely incredible. Arizona being in the Final Four for the first time in a long time is also really special. I feel like both these teams have a lot riding on this game. And I will say, I think I might have overvalued the Big 12 just a little bit going into this tournament. I really liked the Big 12 a lot. And the Big 10, and this is kind of because of last year, because last year there was so much hype behind the Big 10, and the Big 10 just ended up disappointing in a major way. But this year, that's not really the case. The Big 10 really lived up to what it was said to be. I mean, again, 2 teams in the Final Four. They had 4 teams in the Elite Eight, tying the record for the most amount of teams in the Elite Eight. So, I mean, this conference, it's legit. So, but so is Arizona. That's the problem. Like, Arizona, man, I will say, I do think whoever wins this matchup will probably end up being the national champion. So, if Michigan wins, they're my national champion pick. If Arizona wins, they're my national champion pick. I like both of those teams a lot. They've been dominant throughout the entire year. I like the way both these teams would match up against the 2 teams on the opposite side of the bracket. So, yeah, I will say, whoever comes out on Michigan, Arizona, that's my national championship pick. And I know, obviously these games are going to happen after the broadcast is over. So it's not like I can make a prediction on the championship game or, what the actual championship game is going to be. But yeah, I'm going to pick Arizona to win today. Especially the way that Arizona played against Purdue. I really liked that a lot. So I'm going to pick Arizona because Michigan struggled against Purdue, and that was relatively recently. Now, the way they beat Tennessee scares me, though. That's the thing. But I'm questioning how good Tennessee really was, or really any of the other teams that were in the Midwest region. There's just so many questions that I have about the Midwest region besides Michigan that's kind of forcing me to pick Arizona here, because I feel like I got a lot more answers out of the West region than I did the Midwest region. Like there's still just some questions that I have about Michigan and how much they've actually been tested. Like Alabama, they had kind of a Mickey Mouse run to the Sweet 16. I'm just going to be completely honest here. I mean, they played 13 seed Hofstra, then they played a very injured Texas Tech team, beat them both by 20 plus points, and then they go up against Michigan. They put up a decent fight against Michigan, but then they just completely puttered out in the second half. So, I mean, Arizona's a team that you don't really catch sleeping a lot. Michigan, Alabama caught them sleeping. I don't know how else to explain that game in the first half, but I think Alabama just caught Michigan sleeping, and I could see Michigan maybe having a moment where they are caught sleeping, possibly, which, again, those are the reasons why I'm picking Arizona here. I just feel like I know more about how this team is going to play. I also feel like Tommy Lloyd does have that experience in the Final Four and in the national title game, because he was the assistant to Mark Few, during that time. So that's part of the reason why I'm like, I think there's an experience level in that Final Four game that's kind of hidden a little bit. But yeah, I think Arizona's going to surprise some people, and they're going to end up beating Michigan. And then with that being said, that would make my championship game Illinois versus Arizona. Now, this would be an interesting match because Kyle Boswell, he used to play for Arizona. So this would be Illinois and Kyle Boswell. So Kyle Boswell would be going up against his former team in the national championship. I like that a lot. I like that story a lot. Now, I've been thinking that some story like that was going to happen. I said that when Texas made it to the Sweet 16. I'm like, oh, if they beat Purdue, then we'll have the storyline of Sean Miller going up against his former team. Same thing with Gonzaga after when the tournament bracket was set up. When I made my initial picks, I thought Gonzaga would meet up with Arizona in the Elite Eight. The former assistant going up against his former boss. And both those ended up being wrong. But hey, third time's the charm, right? Third time is the charm. So, yeah. I'm going to have... That's why I have... that's kind of the storyline that I'm rooting for, at least, with this Final Four. Okay, so now with my actual prediction of this game. Now, both these teams are pretty even when it comes to size. I think Illinois, they play at a specific pace, but they're good at enforcing that pace. And I think that's why they've made it as far as they've made it. Because with their size, they've been able to enforce their style of play really well. Now, Arizona, they're good at enforcing their style of play as well. However, the thing with Arizona is the three-point line. Now, the question is whether or not their shooters are going to be on point. Burries, Del Orso, like those guys have to be on fire because that's going to open up the game in the paint, and that's where Arizona's strength is on offense. They score a ton of points in the paint. They love to push the paint. So I think if Arizona wants to win this game, they're going to have to hit from the outside. They're going to have to hit from the outside early on to open up the middle, and then they're going to be able to play aggressive, run up the middle, run up the gut, and collect fouls. And I hate saying collecting fouls because I don't necessarily like, players trying to get fouls. I really don't like it when they're flopping. That drives me nuts. I don't think that's a way you should get calls. But if you're drawing contact on a shot, or like you're going into the basket and you get contact, like you're able to draw contact when a player or when you're running into the basket, I think that is fine. But flopping, not okay. I'm not a fan of flopping. But yeah, I think if Arizona is able to open up the paint game with their three-point game, which is kind of what they've been doing the past couple of games. I mean, that's really what they did against Purdue. That's why they were able to go on that run in the second half, was because they opened up that three-point game when it was close in that second half, like towards the beginning. And then Arizona was able to play aggressive in the paint because it was more open, forced Purdue to guard on the outside, and then they were able to get foul calls. So I think if Arizona executes that game plan, I think they end up winning. On defense, Arizona is going to have to really pressure Illinois on the three-point line. They have a ton of elite shooters. Illinois is great from outside the arc. They have the size to compete with Arizona in the paint. So Arizona is going to have to also play really well in the paint. I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona plays man. That wouldn't surprise me at all, because that man is the easiest way to apply pressure everywhere. So that's kind of where my head is leaning right now. I feel like Arizona has more ways that they can beat Illinois, but it all starts with that three-point shooting. And if Arizona is not hitting from the outside, it's over. I think Illinois wins that one if Arizona is not hitting from the outside. But I do like Arizona in this matchup. I also want to see Arizona win. I have some family biases with Arizona. I'm going to just admit that now. I'm not going to be delusional about it, because that's not what we do here. We don't do that. We don't act delusional like some people on ESPN. And I'm going to get to that in a second before we finish up, because there was this awful take on ESPN that I saw that I just remembered, and it really made me mad. I'm not even going to lie. It was so off base, but yeah, my God. But yeah, I think I want Arizona to win. I think they have a great chance of winning if it is against Illinois. UConn is a team that Arizona has played before, and they won. So I think if Arizona makes it, and that's why I said earlier, if Arizona makes it, I think they win the national title. If Michigan makes it, I think they win the national title because both Michigan and Arizona match up well against Illinois and UConn. That's why. So whoever comes out of that game, that's who's going to end up winning. But all right, and the final thing that we're going to be talking about before we head off the air is ESPN becoming the trash take factory. That is what I'm calling them now, the trash take factory, because that's what they've been pumping out this year so far. Just trash take after trash take. And honestly, it's really sad because ESPN used to be the place where sports journalists, the elite sports journalists, were seen. I mean, that's really where you would find the best sports journalists. And now instead, you've got pulverizing personalities like Emmanuel Acho and Dan Orlovsky, a bunch of guys like that. You also have like Kendrick Perkins, who's also a pretty pulverizing person on there. Stephen A. Smith, although Stephen A. Smith hasn't been as bad. Some of his takes have been pretty bad, at least when it comes to the NBA. But I'm not big on the NBA, so I'm not really in on what Stephen A. has been talking about when it comes to the NBA. For college football, he's been pretty spot on, so I don't really criticize him all too much. But yeah, those are just a few of the names that immediately pop up. And it's really sad because, again, ESPN used to be this place where the elite sports journalists would go. There are still some that are good, like Heather Dinich. I like her a lot as a sports journalist, as a writer. She's really good. I will give flowers there. But yeah, the latest take is from Courtney Cronin on Kurt Cignetti ripping Nick Marsh for wearing gold cleats. She had this take on Stephen A. Smith's show, First Take, where her reaction to Kurt Cignetti ripping on Nick Marsh was that Kurt Cignetti needed to take a chill pill. Now, that was it's so unnecessary. Like, this story did not even need to be really that big of a deal. I mean, coaches are constantly keeping their guys humble in some way, shape, or form, and this is one of the ways that they do that, keeps their roster in line, and it makes known the standard that is there. And Cignetti, he comes in, this is going to be his third year at Indiana, but he's been trying to build Indiana not just to get to a national championship, but to build Indiana football as a powerhouse for years to come, even while he's gone. So he's creating a standard right now at Indiana football. And if he's not doing stuff like that, where he's keeping his players accountable, then he might as well just throw all of the work that he's done in the toilet. So, yeah, again, didn't really need to be that big of a story, but ESPN just had to overreact. And then, of course, we got this just trash take from Courtney Cronin. I was appalled when I saw it on the show. It was going viral on TikTok. Absolutely insane. Could not believe when I heard it, but it happened. It's sad what ESPN has become, and yeah, just a damn shame. That's pretty much all I got on that. But yeah, with that being said, that's all we got time for today. If you want to peek back at previous broadcasts, you can go to the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Patreon, Millions.co, YouTube, and other podcasting platforms. I'm also on Twitter now, so every once in a while I'll put out a little tweet. Like if I'm watching a game and there's bad officiating going on, I'll point it out. Or if there's something crazy that happens, I'll give my live reaction there. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram. That's where I give more post-game breakdown. Sometimes predictions go there, like immediate predictions, like a national championship prediction that I can't really give on here because the national championship game for March Madness is going to be after the broadcast is over. So not going to be able to give that like prediction here. So I give that on TikTok and Instagram. And yeah, again, if you want to subscribe to make sure you don't miss, like if you happen to not be able to listen today at 2 p.m., then you can always listen on Spotify and the other podcasting platforms that I mentioned previously. So yeah, with that being said, this is the fun world of sports. I don't know why that's my new part of my outgoing tagline, but it is now. It just kind of stuck last week, so we're just going to roll with it. And yeah, that being said, this is the fun world of sports. Slide out.